Hello everyone, and happy Tuesday. I wanted to make this video for a long time, and I keep not really knowing how to do it, so I'm just gonna do it badly. That's my plan. Today, I want to tell you about a project that I've been working on, and a research proposal that I have posted on the Patreon for any of you to go see. Step 1. Try to 3D print a narwhal using a tree in aquaculture using magnetic fields. If step 1 doesn't work, we go on to step 2, which is genetically engineer the tree so that it's more susceptible to the magnetic fields and more responsive to them. Step 3 is try to create the narwhal with your genetically engineered tree. For steps 1 and 3, we would like to be able to model a complicated three-dimensional structure and apply that three-dimensional structure as a magnetic field by cleverly placing magnets in the right orientations and places. Let's say a narwhal. I think a narwhal is really good. They're like water unicorns. They're great. And that reminds me, you should be drinking more water. Always drink more water. The first step involves common poplar grown in aquaculture. Previous research done on Arabidopsis, which is a common plant for research applications, have shown that when growing in aquaculture, the influence of a high gradient magnetic field can cause the trajectory of root growth to change. Now, how do they do this? Any material with unpaired electrons can experience a very slight force in response to a magnetic field. And that applies equally well to roots. But it's not just that the root is getting pushed, it's also that the root is sensing gravity. Starch grains settle to the bottom of these sensory cells called columella cells in the root tips, and that tells the plant where down is. So the external magnetic field pushes on the grain of starch and changes where the plant perceives down to be, and hence the root tip deflects and moves in a different direction. So it's not just responding to the physical force, it's also responding to its own sensory machinery. Which brings us to step 2, genetically engineering our tree so that it's more susceptible to magnetic field. Where in the first step, we're simply looking at how strongly can magnets affect the growth trajectory of roots in poplar trees. In the second step, we're looking at can we increase that sensitivity. So the magnetic bacterium is M. gryphosvaldense, I think. It's a bacteria that is able to sense magnetic fields. It contains nanomagnets in its cell. Previously, researchers have been able to identify 4 bacterial operons that can be transferred into another bacterium and induce this phenotype of creating magnetic vesicles. That brings me back to our columella cells. What if we were able to introduce those same genes into our columella cells, specifically in the vesicles that form starch, so that those starch particles are much more sensitive to the magnetic fields? Step 3 is basically like step 1. We're also growing our wild-type poplar in aquaculture, along with our genetically engineered poplar, and exposing them both to the same narwhal-shaped magnetic field so that we can directly compare at the same time point whether the genetically engineered tree truly is more sensitive, as well as if and how the genetic engineering affects the final printed product. I also wanted to make a section of this video dedicated to other methods that could be used and that other people have tried. The 3D printing methods that I saw mostly relate to just cellulose, so you could make a piece of wood, but you couldn't make something that you could grow and graft a bioluminescent component onto. Different types of bioprinting, including magnetic 3D bioprinting, all involved placing cells and then having your print finished in a sterile environment and then migrating it to a non-sterile environment, so you can't actually have it grow in situ. You can't actually direct the tree as it grows in the environment. You'd have to create it whole and then place it there. The other methods that I considered involved grafting and shaping trees. Although what other people have done with shaping is very impressive, I'll refer you to the work of Peter Cook and Ferdinand Ludwig. Both of those will be links in the description. Neither of those techniques seemed to allow for the creation of an actual solid wall. And I'm not sure if this genetic engineering with magnets is actually able to do that either, but I'm interested to see the results and if that step forward can be made. I want to do this project as part of my undergraduate degree, so this is essentially a video diary, and the Patreon is sort of just a tip jar. If you're interested in the project, or if you're interested in my videos in general, you can check me out there and see what else I post. My videos go up 2 weeks early on the Patreon, so you can see them there.